next speaker is Tami. She's the CEO of Confluence, and she will talk about AI helping people and people helping AI.
Yeah. And people helping themselves. That's the other part. So my talk is going to be a little different. So I hope you'll bear with me, and my phone has no place to go here. Okay, here we go. Confluence is Confluence is interested in looking at images and their role in modifying. This is not going to work. Hold on 1 second. There we go. Vis-a-vis diagnostic errors. When we talk about diagnostic errors, that's to be distinguished from pharmaceutical errors or surgical errors. So in this case, we're really talking about a subset, and we'll get into some details about this. What's interesting is in the United States, it's estimated that we can realize $100 billion in savings if diagnostic accuracy improves. And we all know that that is partly due to AI improving over time, and with an enhanced degree of specificity and sensitivity, both, not just one or the other. What's also interesting about this, I move like a caged lion, so this may not work. So what's really interesting about this is that I'm going to provide mostly US statistics right now. So 14 million people, Americans, are affected annually by diagnostic errors. And 10% of those are affected by, hold on, there we go, 10% by delayed diagnosis. And I wanted to just clarify what delayed diagnosis can mean. It can mean both from social determinant standpoint, from access to healthcare, from disparities in one particular aspect, but also it relates to diseases which tend to be diagnosed at later stages, things like pancreatic cancer, ovarian cancer. So just to keep that distinction in mind, but both of these come into play with this statistic. The last statistic is one that's kind of interesting in that globally, errors are between 3 to 5%, which we go, okay, well, that's not so bad, right? But that translates up into real people. Uh-oh, did I just kill myself? I did. I hit the kill switch. There we go, okay. So that actually translates up to about 40 million people, and I say about because it's a 3 to 5%. And when we're talking about diagnostic errors, we're specifically talking about misdiagnosis and misdiagnoses. The false negatives, false positives, respectively flipped around. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to try not to hit the kill switch. So the title of the talk is about deep learning, and we all have deep learning concepts in mind when we're talking about AI. But I'd like us to kind of reserve something a little different and look at the possibility of humans having also deep learning capabilities. So in general, we help AI helps us, AI helps itself, and we have to help ourselves. And so it's really about advancing and keeping, I'm not going to say keeping up with AI, that's almost an impossibility in terms of, data acquisition and analysis, but we need to maintain our edge to a certain extent. We'll see how that goes. We're applying a human-in-the-loop approach, just like everybody else. And the design, again, is to increase meaning for both humans and AI. Okay, so what does that mean? Our focus is on images, and specifically advancing image intelligence. The goal behind this is to build knowledge outputs by, I skipped ahead, by enhancing image inputs. When you put animations in here, they really screw you up. I'm going to make that point perfectly clear. So by enhancing image inputs, we actually learn something. We can look at those images and learn something and not just load them into a system and say, okay, tell me what I've got. All right, and that applies both at the clinical level, at the consumer level stakeholder, as well as all of you here. Okay, so this is an image. I call it the squintable image because you do have to squint to understand it and see what's there. And that's okay. In many ways, historically, this image has been all right. It would send a consumer off to the doctor. Mind you, this is pretty late in the game for them to be running to the doctor. They should have noticed it sooner. And that's a part of health literacy that also has to be an integral part of how we approach AI and how we approach AI in medicine. So increasing consumer health literacy. I'm not even paying attention to the time, God help me. Okay, so, yes, I know. So what we have here is an image. Again, it's good enough to run to the doctor. It's good enough for the primary care physician or the family physician to refer you over to the dermatologist. And certainly good enough for the dermatologist to make the decision, we've got to do something about this, and either take a biopsy or simply remove it by sending you over to the plastic surgeon. But is it really good enough? And that's the question. And so we're developing a bunch of filters under the Lesion Optics brand, and this is called Viziz. And basically what it does is really enhance that image. It's enhancing inputs to build knowledge outputs. And so we can look at this and really appreciate, there's like a hair sitting there, but that's fine from where I'm sitting. We can appreciate the zones of inflammation around this lesion. We can appreciate areas which are regressing, and we can appreciate those interior features that we don't see in the squint image. So what does that mean? So we have one image that's ambiguous on one side, and we have an image that's clarified on the other. Well, we need both, because that's the image that we get on the left, and we can enhance it with certain tools. So when we look at this, we can feed both of these into an AI model. And I'll give the example. I actually took these images, fed them into a sandboxed, commercially available model called VisionBot. It no longer exists, by the way. They specified into some other area. But you can load these in here, and not surprisingly, the ambiguous image is going to yield an ambiguous result. It sees a spider with spider parts, as well as maybe skin. On the other hand, the image that's been clarified comes back clean as skin. Remember, it has not been trained on any of this. It simply is using whatever it has been trained on accordingly. So by increasing the clarity of that image, we can potentially go ahead and build our knowledge outputs. And I think an important point to keep in mind, this thing keeps slipping, an important point to keep in mind is that we don't always have to be on the spot as a point of care in looking at an image. It can be historical images that we have. And that's a really important point. So you can increase the value of the image assets that are already available with a little tweaking. Okay, so in theory, what we want to be able to do is, yes, there's explainable AI, but wouldn't it be nice if we could actually understand ahead of time what AI is thinking and doing? And so perhaps making that black box a little bit grayer. I apologize for not looking over at this side of the room. Okay, so from a deep learning I know I'm very funny when I'm up here. It's a nervous reaction. So there you go. Deep learning for all, what we're really targeting is unlocking hidden data. What's there, but that we don't see, yes. The other aspect to this is to allow us to ask better questions, and then to revise our ground truths, to refine them, because that's our knowledge base. If we don't take a look at that, and I know, oh no, please. I know that that's a really tough thing. I hate pictures. I'm a photographer and I hate pictures, but thank you. Yeah, okay, so refining ground truth is really an important aspect of it. Because we can't just stay with what we've known. Just the same way that we can't keep on using the same images that we've been using and asking those same questions. So just moving it along here a little bit, because I do want to get to a couple of these things and I'm fast running out of time. So in theory, what we want to do is reduce diagnostic errors. Our particular interest is actually a slightly different bend on this, and that is to support early detection. And that includes rolling back the timeline for what we know, but also in those diseases that really are late-stage diagnoses to begin with. Okay, and this just shows our nice support for early detection. How am I doing? Okay. All right, so from an image intelligence tool standpoint, okay, that's great. Okay, so this is Viziz. Again, increasing the visualization capability of the images that we have so that we can understand them better. And in the process, AI understands it better as well. And it's a balance between ambiguity and clarity. In the next instance, this is called SCORES, and it's a serial segmentation method, which is essentially rooted in figure and ground contexts. And the ground component is not only if you're looking at skin lesions in terms of the skin pigmentation that someone has, but also the context of that lesion, which is the milieu around it. What other lesions are there? And again, this is just skin, but it doesn't have to only apply to skin. And the ground is also background in terms of patient histories as well. And the last technique, and chances are this is where I'm going to get stuck at this point, ending, is called stitch and peel. And it's a really fascinating technique that takes advantage of embedded symmetry lines. This is a head CT with a hemorrhagic stroke patient. And essentially what it does is reduce the volume and complexity of pixel content that allows you to make direct comparisons from side to side and across images. And you can also think about it in terms of vision transformers as well. So just as a thought process here. I should probably just call it. Okay. I'll just say that one of the best model systems to work with is Skin because it's available. It's readily available. You don't need to go in for extensive testing. It can involve all stakeholders, which is really a phenomenal thing in terms of early detection. And I'm just going to stop it there because it's just, yeah, even though I'm talking really fast. But here, see, there you go. Can I leave with one thought? One thought. This is what we talked about. The algorithms that exist for Skin are not efficacious in this respect because it doesn't deal with the interior features. So I want to thank Ash Margoob, who's come up with the TADA algorithm, which looks at these very specific illustrative sort of archetypes in many ways, and to understand how you go from an organized state to a disorganized state. And I'm going to call it, because it's just